It is Wednesday, the 19th of February, and winter is still making its presence known in many ways. Thankfully, that pattern will change. We'll talk more about that coming up. Here's what's worth watching. We have extreme cold for many, an East Coast storm, and it is thankfully leaving pretty quickly, but it certainly has left a mark and continues to. There's a temperature turnaround from the extreme cold to something a lot more palatable, and heavy rain and mountain snow are going to return to one area of the country, and that's the Pacific Northwest, but that'll be later in the week. Let's take a look now at the visible satellite loop for the country, and if it doesn't move, it's snow, so you can see a lot of that here where that latest storm just got laid down tracks, basically. I'll review the totals here in just a second. This is the storm that's still producing winter precipitation, especially through this part of the world, Virginia and North Carolina. As far as the upper level flow is concerned, cutoff low in the upper atmosphere right over Iowa. That's the center of the cold air aloft, basically. And there's a big old high, as you would typically find on this side of such a feature with a ridge that extends down this way. This thing is cold. Take a look at the surface map. I think this was valid at noon today. And just incredibly cold. The surface high is centered up over North Dakota. And everything here is below zero. All of this area right here, it looks like it almost goes through Chicago. So basically that area. And I'm looking at temperatures minus 26 there in northwest portions of North Dakota. Very, very cold air indeed, but there is relief coming. The latest snowstorm started causing mischief in Kansas 2 days ago and spread across all of Missouri, northern Arkansas. I live in Springfield. Maybe I've said that before once or twice, right in this area here. And the storm was an underperformer, really, because I had a maximum of about a foot of snow. Nothing like that occurred in southwest Missouri where I thought it might. We had some 8-inch totals, and it's kind of interesting because snow banding sets up, and these types of storms are by their very nature moisture-starved because the air is so cold. But it was interesting to watch this. But if you see the blue on here, that's the darker blues are about 3 to 4 inches. And if you see the yellows and oranges, then we're getting into about 6 to 8 to 12 inch totals. So what was interesting is that we had this, I'll just erase that for a second, is we had this band, and I don't think any of the models really picked up on this very well, right in through here where we had 8 almost and some 9-inch totals there between Kansas City and Springfield. So I thought that was rather interesting. Anyway, so this storm continues to move to the east where you see the yellow. That's where the heaviest snow is tracked down. And then as I thought, and as the models indicated, this thing lost a little bit of its punch, so you really don't see the yellow colors anymore. Now, it is still snowing in some of these areas. This is a 24-hour report, and it is basically making a beeline due east of this storm. So we still see some snow there in Virginia, but we're all talking about under 4-inch totals so far. Well, what's left of that snowstorm is still going to produce some snow, has produced some snow, and in portions of Virginia and North Carolina, we're looking at the possibility of up to 10 inches of snow, maybe a little bit more in some areas. This is through Thursday morning. The bulk of this is going to fall Wednesday evening, and then maybe slightly after midnight, this storm will be out to sea. So that'll be the end of that. There is also some ice concern with this here in parts of the Carolinas, but I think the model is a little overdone on the totals there in parts of North Carolina. But having said that, though, there is a winter storm warning out for that part of the world here, at least this part of the world here, and then for the remaining snow as it leaves the coast, it is pretty much stopped in this area. So I recorded this earlier on Wednesday, so those have likely been canceled since I made that map right there. So the last real winter storm that is organized is now leaving the country. We've had quite a few of them, but at least for the next 7 days, I don't see a replacement of at least that type of storm. Extreme cold warning from Canada to Mexico. This is really very, very quite frigid, and the only saving grace is that it's not going to last a terribly long time. But man, this stuff is very, very cold with highs below zero and the freezing line going all the way down just about to coastal Texas. So a huge, huge area. We'll take a look at the low temperatures forecast tonight. First of all, when you look at this map, the blues are not temperatures, they're temperature departures. So the darker the blue and even some of these purples here are how many degrees below normal it is. And then if you want want the actual lows, you just look here. Kansas City, minus 12. Bismarck, North Dakota, minus 26. And by the way, that blue star right there is very close to the coldest forecast low in the country. That's what this map does. And meanwhile, in the Keys, right down here, that red star is where the warmest area is. So that's Thursday morning lows. And then we're going to jump ahead to Sunday. Look at the humongous temperature turnaround here. So now all of this is above normal temperatures, and we're looking at readings in the 40s in the Dakotas, where highs were only in the minus 20s today and tomorrow. And then we go to Monday, we see a huge change here. Much of the country, except the southeastern U.S., for a change, is experiencing a well above normal temperature pattern. And I've highlighted this before. We'll just pick a different city this time. I usually use Glasgow, Montana, but here's Bismarck. So from the high temperature expected today, which is 0, I don't think they even got to that, they're going up to 50 by Monday. So that's a 50-degree plus increase in just a few short days. Okay, and then we're going to review this heavy rain in 3, 2, 1. Well, the country is actually drying out quite a bit, with one notable exception. So Sunday through Monday, we do have more precipitation returning to the northwest U.S. So there's Seattle right there. So some of these precipitation totals. Now, much of this just shows if it's snow, it's melted down. But you're still looking at totals here, and I forgot to put the graphic on here, but you're looking at 5, 6, 7 inch totals, liquid totals. So that implies, many 4 or 5 feet of snow in some of the mountain areas in the Pacific Northwest, with rain probably in the 1 to 2, maybe 3 inch rain down in the valleys in between the mountains. And again, that's a 2-day quantitative precipitation forecast for Sunday and Monday. It's really the wettest part of the entire nation, even for the next week or so. We have a pattern shift. The cold air is on its way out for most folks and being replaced by a lot milder air, especially in the nation's heartland. Here is the EPS. This is a model ensemble. The European model is the one I chose, and we're looking at 500 millibars as a good indicator of what's going on. So this initialized today, and first of all, you can see this big pool of cool air aloft right here. And this is that low pressure center that's kind of cut itself off. All the cold Arctic air is underneath it. And that is what we're going to focus on the departure of. Watch as it goes here. We're going to see how it kind of goes off into the eastern U.S., centered over Pennsylvania by, let's see, Thursday noon tomorrow. And then it'll just keep on going out into the Atlantic. Meanwhile, we have one little disturbance right here. I don't think this has much moisture to work with, so it's probably not going to cause any major issues, although it still is cold enough in some areas for that to be snow or some form of freezing precipitation, but I just don't think that's a player in the overall scheme of things. It kind of gets sheared out and moves to the east. So what we're looking at here is a continuation of this building ridge right here, and also just really strong winds over the Rockies right here, which is in fact going to lead to pretty windy conditions through this part of the world on the lee side of the Rockies. And that's a downslope effect, so it has tremendous warming potential. And that air, which is really modified air that comes off the Pacific Ocean, is eventually going to spread into the central U.S. This way, and we'll watch how that develops. And that's going to mean a huge temperature swing for a lot of people, and an improvement, I guess, from the really frigid Arctic air that we have been experiencing. So let's take this through. This is now Sunday evening. So again, we had that very strong wind flow across the northern Rockies, especially, and then this area right here is going to experience some pretty good warming as a result of all that. We'll advance this a little bit more. You'll notice it maintains itself, although this does support a few, still a kind of a cold front that will kind of drape down through this area here. New England and much of the Northeast is still going to be cool. They're at that trough, so that's just going to be cool air for them. But as we go into, let's say that's Tuesday of next week, and we only really probably want to go out maybe a little bit more. And then here we see a little trough of low pressure. Again, we're getting into fantasy land here a little bit. This is about a week out. But that would support a reinforcing shot of cool air. So warming for a lot of people, except for the Northeast, and then eventually back to a normal or slightly below normal pattern, it looks like, in the central U.S. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.